Everyone ready? Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 2nd meeting of the Milton School Committee. I need to in order to adhere to the open meeting laws, I need to inform you that this meeting will be videotaped, and please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any additions or corrections? I have one to our agenda this evening. Mine is, I would just like to add the approval of school committee minutes. Those are from January 19th, January 26th, and February 9th. Does anyone have any other agenda items or omissions or corrections?
After 3?
I'm sorry?
Where? After 3?
We'll put that right, exactly, right after the citizens speak. Thank you. Okay, hearing none, I accept, approve the minutes as written with that addition. And we'll move into citizen speak. I'd like to invite Michelle Donovan to come up and speak this evening. Thank you. If you could just state your name and address.
First, address?
Please.
So my name is Michelle Donovan, and my address is 137 Gerald Road. And I'm back in front of you again today to officially thank you on the record on behalf of the Milton families for taking into consideration and hearing the voices of the Milton families about the grandfathering policy for the French program. As when I spoke to you last, it was a big concern for a lot of families, and I can tell you after the grandfathering policy was changed back to being instated, I've received numerous emails from numerous families who are absolutely thrilled with the opportunity to keep their families together in school. So on behalf of all of them, I thank the entire committee. I'd also like to thank briefly Kristen Bagley-Jones, who actually reached out to me at one point and expressed some of her thoughts. I want to thank Mr. Cohane as well, who I really appreciate came to me right soon after the last meeting when I was here to express his support in the grandfathering program, and his support and his guidance to me on behalf of the families was extremely valuable. And then mostly, of course, I want to thank Ms. Gormley for hearing our words and taking consideration both sides of the situation into great thought and deciding to reinstate the grandfathering policy, which I think is really important for Milton families, and I know everyone that I've spoken with is quite happy about it. So I thank all of you, and again, appreciate the specific helps from Mr. Cohane and Ms. Gormley especially as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all.
Now I'd like to welcome some very special members of the Milton Foundation for Education. If you can join us around the table, I believe we have Tom Flynn, Patty Elliott, Lisa Viola, and Astrid Hajar. Esther, sorry.
Hello, my name is Lisa Viola. I live at 25 Collimore Street.
My name is Patty Elliott, and I live at 97 Briarbrook Street.
Astrid Hajar, 89 Countryside Lane.
And I'm Tom Flynn. I live at 15 Clock Road.
We're excited to join you tonight on behalf of the Foundation for Education. We are, Patty, Astrid, and I are also co-chairs of the fundraiser that's coming up on April 2nd called the Big Backyard Bash. I'm hoping that all of the Milton School Committee, as well as families whose children attend the Milton schools, received last week in the mail an invitation to our event. We're very excited about it. This event has a long history of being held. This is our 11th year, and this year we're changing the location to the Quincy Marriott. We have just started accepting ticket requests. And for anyone who's interested in buying tickets, we wanted to make sure you know that Saturday, March 5th is the deadline to receive tickets at a reduced price. It's $55 through March 5th, and then after that it goes up to $65 per person. If parents aren't sure whether they're going to be able to line up a babysitter, Please know that in conjunction with Mary Gormley, we'll be offering a Wildcat Fun Night so that parents have an option if they can't get a babysitter. Their kids can have a safe place to go to hang out with some friends. Let me see. Do you want addition? Okay.
We've started collecting silent and live auction items, and if anyone has an item that they can think of, or tickets, or theater tickets, or anything that they would part with for the Milton Public Schools and the Foundation for Education, they can email me, Patty Elliott, at bigbackyardbash2011@yahoo.com. I would be happy to set up a time to pick up the item, or they can drop it at the Pierce Middle School.
I think we should talk a little bit about the raffle. Tom, would you like to say a few words?
So the Milton Foundation for Education has received over the years some very, very generous gifts to exotic destinations. Dennis and Mary have been gracious enough over the years to donate a trip to Ireland. This year, following that tradition, we have a tremendous prize I think will generate a lot of enthusiasm. We are raffling off 2 tickets. Opening day, April 8th, the Red Sox versus the Yankees at Fenway Park. It will also include a limo ride to the game and a one-night hotel stay at the game. The Red Sox tickets have been generously donated by Denise and Desi Quayle. And we also are throwing in a bottle of champagne for the game. So the tickets are available. PTOs have the tickets available to them. Would love to see everybody purchase the tickets. The tickets are $10 each, or 3 for $25, or as my wife would say, they are 3 for $25 and $10 each. You can reach out to me if you want in order to purchase tickets. Let me know, and I'll be more than happy to drop them off. My email address is tflynn, FLYNN, CLMP@AOL.com. And they are available through the schools, and the PTOs are distributing them also, and Mary has some also.
And at every school office, the secretaries have agreed if parents want to just stop by the school office, they can purchase the raffle tickets or tickets to the event.
I finally like to say that the Big Backyard Bash is not just a fundraiser. It is our way, it's the way the foundation has to create awareness about the work it does and the benefit and all the wonderful things it does for the children in the Milton Public Schools. There's good education and there's excellence in education, and I think the foundation takes wonderful steps to achieve that goal. So I hope that the Milton community, the parents, the teachers, and the students support us in this. I don't like to call it fundraiser. This is a celebration, and I hope you all can join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just before you leave, could you tell everybody what the website is, in case they want to look and find out more about the event?
Absolutely. Our website is miltonfoundationforeducation.org. And on the website, you can purchase tickets. You can find out more information about how we give money back to the community and to the schools, as well as possibly become a sponsor for our event. So again, it's miltonfoundationforeducation.org.
And if you might, would you repeat, because I've had to repeat for lots of people, about the ticket special that's on till Saturday. Would you just repeat that for the public?
Yes, so tickets can be purchased online, and the price for tickets is $55 per person through Saturday, and then Sunday and forward, it's $65 per person.
I hope you all can join us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just also, if people don't remember that website, it is available through the Milton Public School, miltonps.org. There's a link from that at the homepage as well. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move into accepting minutes. I'll accept a motion to approve the January 19th minutes of the Milton School Committee.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion or Comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Great, thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to accept the January 26th minutes.
So moved.
Second. So moved by Mrs. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Bagley Jones. Any discussion? Mr. Pavlicek.
On the third page, the motion in the middle of the page is missing a second. We were just trying to recall who it was, but we've decided we think it was Dennis.
Which page?
The second?
It's in the middle of the third page.
Oh.
One? Yes. Page 5, the adjournment.
The 19th?
Oh,
Yes, and on the last page, since Mr. Cuban wasn't here, apparently no one moved us to adjourn. So we have to figure out who that might have been.
movie and second. Anyone recall who did that?
I bet it was me.
Okay. So it was moved by Ms. Bagley Jones and seconded by Mr. Cohen. Thank you. Any other corrections on that, on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Excuse me.
Abstention.
That's right, with one abstention, 5-4, and one abstained. And I will now entertain a motion to accept or approve the February 9th minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hubian. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohen. Do we have any discussion?
Mine said February 2nd.
Yeah, mine says February 2nd, too.
I have one that says February
February
9th.
I'm looking at February 9th.
Looks like it's...
February 9th.
Mine says the 2nd, too, Glenn.
February 9th.
That's strange. Well, what date was it? Let me look back and see what date it was.
Strange.
All right, we'll check what date it was.
Yeah, this is the one that was sent out in the email. Was
That's the
that the
one
one?
that- this was
You're the
just in
one
the
in the
packet.
packet.
It was February 2nd was the date of the meeting. So thank you for that. So it's not the February 9th minutes, it's the February
February
2nd minutes. How that got changed. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any corrections
Just a
aside
minute.
from the date?
Just a minute.
Mhm.
Oh, you're in Florida? So it had to have been the 9th.
I have my agenda right here, and it says February 2nd.
It was that weekend.
How about if we hold these minutes until we
Yeah,
can figure that one
I'm
out?
pretty sure it was the 9th, but
Okay.
I'd rather wait and check it out.
I have my agenda here, it says the second. Well, there was a second and a ninth, maybe? Okay, we'll hold those minutes.
It
Any-
was the 9th.
Okay?
Did we make the 2nd, too?
We catched it.
We'll hold those minutes until we clarify that up. Okay. Thank you. And now we'll move into Ms. Gormley's report.
I'd like to invite up to the table to join us Glover Principal Stephanie Nephew and her site council. Stephanie, I'm going to leave introductions to you so you can begin. Stephanie, since our two AV assistants aren't here, do you want me to work the, I want to see that. I can sit there. Do you want to do it?
I can sit there.
And
No,
John.
we're good.
John's going to do it.
We're good.
Student representative. Thank you.
Our student rep, John Savino, to the rescue.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for having us. I would like to introduce our two parent representatives from the School Site Council. We have Jim Sepulsa and Emily McElhaney. Emily is also my co-chair for the Site Council. We can actually go to the next slide, which lists our other members that weren't able to be here tonight. We also have Raj Pathak, who's our third parent, as well as Lori Henry, who's our librarian. She is a teacher representative. Chase Chauzier, who's a 5th grade teacher at Glover, and Maureen Flanagan. We meet every Wednesday. We've been working on our improvement plan, looking at our data, and so we are proud tonight to share that with you. So we can go to our first slide about the data. First of all, looking at our AYP report this year, Glover did very well. We are in the very high range for English language arts and the high range for mathematics. For English, we did make AYP. We met the target for our aggregate, and we showed sufficient improvement for our special education subgroup. So we did make AYP for our English language arts, which is excellent. The same is true for our mathematics. We did make the target in our aggregate, and again, we showed enough improvement in our special ed subgroup to make AYP. If you look at the bottom chart, it shows that we are still a school in year 1 for improvement, because the 2 years prior to this, we did not make AYP. So we're hoping for a second year with making AYP status, which will allow us to be off of that improvement tag.
Excuse me.
What we really focused on as a site council was really looking at our strengths and weaknesses and trying to figure out what the data reveals about the areas that we need to really focus on and zero in on as we improve. So in our English language arts, I'm happy to say that in all areas of English language arts, we were above the state average. But there were areas that we saw as areas of strengths and areas that we saw in relative weakness. Our strengths are really the things that are very objective for learners. What we see is that higher order thinking, that deeper analysis of text is what kids sometimes struggle with. So in general, we're seeing poetry as a weakness, where we see vocabulary as strength. Some of those more concrete pieces of English language arts. I've had the luxury of working at K through 12 now, so I'm beginning to now really see the patterns that I see across the district, K through 12, and the patterns we see in Glover is also representative of the patterns we see as a district. Our areas to focus on is really looking at nonfiction text, open response writing, so kids' response to literature, as well as poetry, again, that higher order thinking and really that difficult analysis of text, because it's a little more subjective. And that's what I've seen as an area of weakness across the grade levels. So it is consistent with what we're focusing on across middle school and high. Interesting that we see in the math areas of relative strengths and areas of relative weakness, we really see a pattern for 3rd through 5th grade. Number sense is shown as a real strength for our students, as well as patterns, relations, and the algebra. But what we're seeing as areas to focus on is specifically geometry and measurement. Measurement was something that really popped specifically in our 5th grade. We had a number of strands that were below the state average, so something that we're really targeting and focusing on. Things like perimeter and area, angles, those kinds of things, we were below our state average. We also noticed, that's okay, but I'll just add one thing, that some looking at just the kinds of questions that are asked, open response, again, is something that we're struggling a little with in terms of our math. Thank you. So the fun part is what we're doing about it. And I'm happy to say that this is my first year at Glover, and it's wonderful to work with such a talented staff and an eager staff to improve. So we've done a lot of great work together this year. And some of the first things that we started with in August was really looking at the MCAS data and unpacking the MCAS data to really look at how we need to move our instruction. All of the teachers received both the general overview of strengths and weaknesses, but then very specific data around each individual child. So they received objective summaries of each of their students to really look at the strengths and weaknesses of individual children so they could really target instruction. In professional development, we also looked at question by question what areas kids were struggling with, and then really as a staff reflected on what does that mean about our instruction, what kind of resources do we need, what do we need to do to move forward. No, we're not yet, sorry. Because we saw open response as an area that really we needed to focus on, looking at student work and looking at writing has been a real focus within our work as a staff. So we looked at a model or a protocol to look at student work. And we've been doing that. We've now had 3 or 4 sessions where people are bringing student samples. We're looking at low, middle, and high performing samples. We are, as a group, analyzing the work. What is the evidence of understanding? What are areas that children need to focus on? And what are action steps that we now have to bring into the classroom? We also, as a system, elementary level, are really focusing on benchmark assessments. It's really important that we understand at the end of a unit what the end game is. So in math this year, which is a new thing, there's unit assessments that are across every elementary school that the students are taking, and what is great about them is the dialogue that we have afterwards. What is the assessment telling us about our students, and what do we need to now do to move forward in our instruction? We've also talked about every classroom either has portfolios, writing portfolios or writing journals, so that we can really keep track of the progress of our children's writing, so that, again, we're really looking at the data that the children are giving us about their strengths and areas of concern, so that we can begin to target that instruction. And finally, we're using Study Island as a tool to gain information. Study Island, first of all, is an online resource that the school has purchased that students can access both in school and at home. We, for Glover, currently have mathematics for grades 3 through 5. We have English for grade 4 and science for grade 5. So students can access this online tool. They can do lessons within it. They can answer questions, and they can also play games. So our kids are really getting excited about utilizing it. They're using it at home constantly. We actually have a class. We actually keep track every month of how the students are doing, how many questions they get correct. And we're kind of doing this healthy competition to see how students are doing with Study Island, to encourage them to use it. Proud to say that one of our 5th grade classes, you had 22,000 answers correct in the month of January. Unbelievable.
That's great.
But we get to use the data from Study Island. It basically tells us for every single student where their strengths and weaknesses are, what areas of the standards they're struggling with, what areas they're doing really well with, and it'll actually make recommendations for areas that students should practice. And what's so nice about it is there's instant information given to the kids, but also to the teachers. So students immediately know if they got a question right or wrong. They don't have to wait 2 days to get a paper back and say, oh, I was doing all of that wrong. They're getting instant information about whether they understand a concept. And the same is true for teachers. They can log on to any student's information and quickly get some data around how kids are doing.
May I just say one more thing about that? Because my understanding of Study Island also is that the teachers or someone from within the school can set the agenda for what the students are working on. So you can, once you've identified the areas of weakness, you can then program it so that certain classes or grades or students even are working on that specific content area or subject matter that they need reinforcement in.
Absolutely. The questions are directly aligned with the state standards, and so you can identify I want, students to just answer the question specifically to measurement or specifically to geometry, and so they can really focus on those standards that we see as a area that we need to focus on as a school.
And for any child who doesn't have a computer at home, they can access it from any computer or the library.
Absolutely, and the teachers, when they're assigning work, they're also very thoughtful in terms of that. They can print any of the materials that they have, so they can also provide hard copies as well.
And if I might, while we're on Study Island, in the MFE board meetings, Mrs. Kelly has been very supportive. Parent feedback about Study Island, we spoke up and lobbied, and in the last round of grants, the MFE was very generous in enabling us to fund Study Island for the system.
That's great.
We sought alternate sources so that we were able to expand Study Island. But Stephanie Nephew told me an interesting story about a parent coffee she had today. We're going to put it out in the principal's newsletters and my email blast, but Stephanie, would you share what you became aware of today with the math coordinator that we didn't know?
Sure. This morning we had a principal coffee for parents and guardians to come in so that they could get acquainted with Study Island. The kids are whizzes at are excellent. They know exactly how to maneuver through the website, but we wanted to have an opportunity for parents and guardians to understand how they could access it and get the data and really understand what their students are doing. So we had a group of parents in our lab today, and what we discovered is that parents and guardians of students in grades K through 2, we don't have a subscription right now, but they can purchase a single subscription for $59 for an entire year, and they would get access to all content areas within their students' grade level. So if they wanted to purchase the resource for a different grade, they would have the opportunity to do that, and it would be a great tool to use over the summer, or also just to kind of have a resource to help. What is nice about the Study Island is a number of times parents will come and say, I'm not really comfortable with this content, haven't done it in many years. There are lessons that directly link to each state standard. So again, parents and guardians can go on and get a refresher or sort of go with a student and look at the information and kind of help maneuver through a content area that might be an area of weakness.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I think we're ready to move on. Ultimately, what we're really focusing on is targeting instruction, making sure we understand the needs of our students, and targeting instruction both for the curriculum areas that we want to focus on, but also for individual students. So the areas that we've been working on as a school, one is the focus on writing. We've had some professional development on writing. Our October Day was really focused on writing and providing writing opportunities, not just in an English language arts classroom, but in math class and science class and social studies. So when do you have those opportunities for students to be writing their thinking? Because the idea is when they're writing about the things that they're thinking about or the concepts they're beginning to understand, they're actively engaging in the curriculum, and it also is a way for us to assess their understanding. So really providing, we've talked as a faculty about brainstorming ideas about how to incorporate more and more writing opportunities across the curriculum. We've also done some work on meeting the needs of all learners. We have such a diverse group of learners, and we want to make sure that we're differentiating instruction and we're thinking about how we're presenting material and giving opportunities for students to engage in material in many different ways. So we've been focusing our professional development on engaging all learners. We've seen an area of weakness is the nonfiction, which the MCAS has moved more and more into having students be assessed on nonfiction text. And as we analyze our curriculum and what we teach, we often teach fiction. So we really needed to focus on targeted instruction in really understanding and being able to comprehend nonfiction. So some of the things that we've done is, one, looked at instruction and what our instruction looks like around nonfiction, but also providing children more opportunities to engage in interesting nonfiction text. a lot of the research shows that our boys are gravitating to nonfiction. So we also want to make sure that we're tapping into all interests of students so that we have developed a love of reading for all kids, and nonfiction is an important role in that. So one of the things we've done, our PTO has purchased Times for Kids for our students. We've also done a number of fundraisers to purchase additional nonfiction literature in the classroom. A number of our teachers through the first round of MFE grants were able to purchase nonfiction text. And our book fair that we raised $3,000, we're also focusing on purchasing some nonfiction text to have in the classrooms. So it's a real focus to get that interesting material that kids are going to want to just grab and read for pleasure. We talked a lot about utilizing Study Island, but we also are making sure that we're supporting kids that might need some additional help. So for our students in grades 4 and 5, we have opportunities for before and after school small group instruction to meet the needs of students that might need some additional time to engage in some of the concepts that they're learning. We also are starting a Saturday program that starts this Saturday, a 6-week program that has been funded through MFE money so that we could offer an opportunity for some of our students that may, again, need some additional opportunities to engage in some of the content. So for both English and math, grades 3 through 5, we've invited children to participate in that program. And then we also we started an enrichment opportunity for students before and after school. So our teachers are leading different workshops, one a school newspaper, another one that is all about making money. So a lot of the math content, but for our business-seeking children. So really trying to find some interesting, creative opportunities for kids to be engaging, again, in the content that we want them to focus on, but in a way that they are tapping into their interests. Finally, for me, teacher collaboration is the key to improving instruction. We have an incredibly talented staff, but they all have areas that they really shine in, and you want to tap into making sure that they're being part of building an entire school and improving an entire school. So finding opportunities to collaborate, which is a challenge at the elementary level with the schedule, but we've developed a 5th grade curriculum group. We meet before school. We've done a lot of great work within that group. I developed a shared folder, which is so simple. You just simply have access. All teachers have access to it. So each grade level has a folder that they can start to put materials in. So a way for people to share some of the tools that they're using. And we've really tried to utilize every minute of every faculty meeting to make sure that we are collaborating and talking about instruction and improving instruction. So through this student work analysis sessions, as well as looking at some professional literature around instruction, but making sure that we're tapping into those monthly meetings to really utilize every minute of them. We're now into the parent-guardian part of our improvement plan, which is a huge piece of success in schools. And so I'm going to actually have Jim Sepulsa jump in and let some of our parents share some of the things that we're doing around that.
Great. So one of the areas that of our goals this year was to improve communication. So Mrs. Nephew every 3 weeks does a Glover newsletter that she sends out to everyone, which I think has been welcomed by all the parents. It not only talks about what she cares about, but it involves some student work on writing some of the news articles about latest events. We had a challenge a little bit about trying to make sure that everyone who wanted to get it was getting it, and we realized that not everyone was getting the email. So Obviously, it's probably something most schools go through, trying to build a database and make sure that everyone is included that wants to be. So a couple of them were also printed to make sure that they were going to everybody until we had a good database. But I think we've done a good job improving communication in general. She talked a little bit about the coffee that she also once a month, usually the day before the site council, she has right after school starts, has coffee for parents to come in and not only meet the principal and talk about events that are coming up or any concerns. And I think just being open and being able to answer any questions has been very welcomed. Overall, there's been a lot of, one of the goals is to have more activities and community involvement in general. The first turkey trot was this year. Hopefully, it'll be an annual event on the week of Thanksgiving. And there's other things like the lantern walk that we've done before that we're continuing to do, socials, things to get people together. And in terms of connecting parents and guardians to the school and the curriculum, there's been several activities, whether it be family literacy night, Read for a Cause, everyday math. We're doing a junior achievement program again this year. Last year we started a pilot program just in the 3rd grade, and this year we're expanding it to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. And we're in the process right now of getting parent volunteers to help teach the program. And it's a really good way for parents to be involved in the curriculum. The Junior Achievement curriculum is very much MCAS-based learning, and it's a great material that teachers can use after instruction, and it's no cost to the school. And we're hoping to fill all those volunteers in the next couple of weeks. Anything else to add?
Well, the one thing I will say, Mr. Sepulsa had mentioned sort of making sure that our database was sound. That was actually a project that the site council took on. We wrote a letter and did a hard copy to every family, and basically said that communication is so important to us, and it's crucial that people are getting the emails and the newsletters that are coming out. So it was just a check to make sure that the database was accurate. So it kind of highlighted what has been sent out and have you received it. And we were able to get, we probably got about 20 or more pieces of paper that said, you know what, I need you to add this email address. So it was really helpful to make sure that we were reaching all families. And it also provided an opportunity, if someone wanted a hard copy, they could say, you know what, send it to me hard copy. That's an easier form. So again, it was an initiative that we took on to ensure that the communication that we had put in place was actually working. And I think that we spoke of many of the community events and curriculum events that we've done. The next slide simply highlights, if you look at a specific topic, some of the things that we've done so far this year as a community. And Emily McElhaney was going to share some of that. But again, we're not going to go through the whole laundry list of things that we've done, but we're really trying to make sure that parents feel connected and that students feel part of a community. The Turkey Trot, some of my little kindergartners said, this was my first road race. And all of the parents were along the sideline cheering them on. And, it took 20 minutes out of the day, but it was a huge community building piece. And so those things are really important as well.
So on this slide, you can see an overview of some of the events that we've had for families and for students. We had Family Literacy Night this year. We did a Read for a Cause fundraiser. We've started an art history docent program, actually, which I'll talk in more detail about later tonight. We've had mystery readers and the Glover Book Fair. One of the events we wanted to talk in a little more detail tonight was about the Family Literacy Night, because it seems to touch on a lot of the achievement goals that we've been talking about, and it crosses that homeschool connection in a lot of ways. So I think Mrs. Nephew can talk a little bit about some of the things that happen during the day, and then I can offer an extension for some of the family element to it.
We had the opportunity to have poet Sarah Holbrook come join us for the day and the evening. And she did some writing workshops in some 4th grade classrooms, which were incredibly powerful for the children, but equally as powerful for the teachers. And she also did a whole class assembly for 4th and 5th grade students, reading some of her poetry and talking about her development as a writer. And a number of my 5th graders came to the literacy night that night knowing that Sarah Holbrook would be there. And it was a nice thing to see that kids were getting inspired by a writer and wanting to see more of her. She also did a workshop with teachers after school, and 20 of our Glover teachers participated in the workshop. And they found her work to be so engaging that they also then bought her other professional development books. She just most recently wrote a book on working on teaching vocabulary through poetry. And I will say that our next newsletter will feature some of the great poems that our students have been working on through some of the lessons that she's developed, that our teachers now have taken ownership of. So it had been a great opportunity to have Sarah Holbrook come join us. She also came to the Family Literacy Night to share her work with both children and parents and guardians.
Yeah, so as part of her visit, she stayed into the evening and did a reading for the entire school community instead of that smaller subset of older elementary students. And it was incredibly entertaining. The kids were really engaged, and it hit on some of those achievement goals that we've been talking about, particularly with poetry and further exposure to that. And the other thing was there was a book fair that same evening, and the money that was raised from the book fair was put back into an account to buy nonfiction texts. So we were also hitting that ELA goal of increasing our nonfiction exposure for our students. So we had this great community event that also reinforced a lot of the things that we're trying to improve about the school and the initiatives that we're following through on. The other thing that was great about it is that it's just terrific to see all the kids of different ages engaged in one very entertaining and cohesive activity that they all took different parts away from. There are different presentations for different grade levels throughout the year, but it's really wonderful to have one that the whole elementary community can take something from. And there were also a lot of faculty there, which is wonderful to see, that they were so invested in her visit, that they gave more of their time than they already give. So it was a terrific night for our goals as a site council, but also for the students.
I guess I would end with one story, because one of the one thing that I really focus on when improving student achievement is making sure that our students are actively engaged in their learning. And to me, that's the most important piece when looking at a classroom and looking at instruction, that students are actively engaged. And probably my the best moment in my school leadership career was this year in a 5th grade classroom when I was observing a class, and I went up to a group of students who were very engrossed in what they were doing, and I tried to ask them a couple questions to get a sense of the project. And a student looked at me very politely. Ms. Nephew, could you maybe ask us that a little later? We're kind of busy. And to me, that's the ultimate in creating an environment in a classroom where students are really actively engaged and really reaching their potential. So that is our improvement plan. Thank you for listening. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Hubian.
I think parental involvement is very important in the child's educational experience. You talked a little bit about the communication of what's going on in the classroom and getting it to the parents. How do you get the feedback from the parents to the schools, and how do you use that data?
The feedback that we get from parents, I guess I would say that a lot of it comes through individual conversations. We have talked about, as a site council, creating a survey to get some data from parents. It is actually one of the things that we talked about as a project for the site council, so that we could have a more systematic way to get some information from families. But ultimately, what I've gained from the parents and guardians is having many opportunities to have people in the building at evening events and talking to families to get a sense of what their needs are. So a lot of it is, I guess, grassroots, sort of being right in front and talking to them.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
First, sorry that I got interrupted there for a minute. I forgot I had to give somebody a check for lacrosse equipment, so my apologies. I noted in your information here, which was great to have, by the way, that from 2003 to 2007, you were 100% yes on your AYP, correct? And then you had a couple years where it was half and half, and now we're back up again, all yeses on 2010. Okay, so how does that fit into the SMART growth? Did I miss that? Like, what would it look like for Glover's, right? SMART growth?
Growth model.
Growth model. Thank you. I'm thinking
But
of
it is
something else, but it is SMART. But the growth model, I mean,
We're making, you know, we are showing growth this year. Basically, the last 2 years was the same target for MCAS in terms of AYP. Next year, the target increases.
Okay.
So we will need to show more growth to meet the target.
Okay.
So the way the AYP system works, you know, we're reaching this goal for 2014, but it basically, we have 2 years where it's sort of the same, and then we go up a little, and it's 2 years, and we go up a little. So this was the second year with the same goal, and so typically it's a little easier the second year to meet that target, and then now we have a more challenging goal.
okay.
Mrs. Kelly?
But just following up on that, the growth model is actual growth of individuals, right?
Correct.
And so the higher you are to that target, that ultimate 2014 target, the harder it is to continually to make major improvement, and therefore on that grid that we
Yes.
saw, maybe you're more in the middle, where maybe like a Tucker who made great strides on individual basis would be, because they had further to move, just look like maybe they were having more growth, which, I mean, the ultimate goal of any system is to get everyone moving ahead.
Correct.
And the 2014, one would hope that at some point the state will revisit that date or something,
Well,
because
That's already, they're looking at that.
they are looking
Has
at that.
to be,
It
yeah,
hasn't happened yet.
reauthorized.
I would like to say that Ms. Neff, when we've been doing the Collycott principal search, the response from the Collycott parents during our search process, we want to be as pleased as the Cunningham and Glover parents are with their new principals. And so I want to recognize Ms. Nephew. All you have to do is walk through the school and see how engaged the children are. And the teachers, the response is phenomenal. You only have to hear Ms. Nephew to know that everyone is engaged and part of a bigger picture. And obviously, the parents here tonight, you've stayed with us with the Young Achievers.
Junior Achievers, yeah.
Junior Achievers. And new programs like the Art Docent. And I have to tell you, Ms. Nephew's impression, going a little secret, going to the Glover, the engagement of the parents. And what I say to our principals, these schools, this is a town, these schools are the town, and the town is the schools, and these families want to be a part of the school. So if it's Saturday skating parties or Friday night bingos, our schools are open, and they're open because our families love our schools, and they want to be with their children. So Stephanie's first impression was, Mary, I think it's open every night. I think it's open all weekend. But again, to Mr. Huban's point, family engagement correlates to increased student achievement. And we see it with individual children, and we see it with schools, and we see it with districts. across the country. And so the Glover community is engaged, and I want to commend you on hit the ground running, and it's a perfect match. And again, I think I can see by the parents here and the response from the community. You've done an excellent job, and this site council work proves it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mrs. Kelly?
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up on Study Island, thinking about the summer. When my boys were younger, and they would, the PTOs, I think, would offer like a workbook or something and the different English and math to work on. Study Island sounds like it's perfect. So I guess I wanted to know, is there a deadline, like, at the end of June, does Study Island shut off for those kids that are accessing it?
No, they are able to access it all summer long.
Great. And then can they access the next level if that's, or is it really cut off by the, do you have to purchase to get access to the next levels, I guess would be?
All of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students have access to all 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So a 3rd grader could move on to 4th grade work. A 4th grade student that's struggling with a concept could practice 3rd grade work. So you can use any of what we have.
But to Mrs. Kelly's point, Mrs. Kelly has helped us find this funding. We had a meeting with our site council heads last night, and our grant writer presented, and there's a possibility that we could look to this so that all children could access it over the summer. And because of the excitement and the response, and to really to seize on that excitement, Stephanie was explaining your 2nd grader, 1st grader really can't go on your 5th, they could use your 4th grader's account, but if they didn't get the answers right.
Change the data.
So we'll look into that funding and make that an initiative for the system.
It's very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't finish. In fact, I didn't. I meant to say I had something else. I did like hearing about the MCAS, and it's always a good thing to hear about. It's a really important thing. But what was really helpful to hear about was the increased communication, or the not increased, but just your style of communication and how you're doing that. And it was also really helpful to hear about the events, because school is not just MCAS. So it was really helpful. I felt like this was a very comprehensive picture of what you've been doing at Glover around MCAS and state standards, but also about the communication and also about the events and the culture of the school, and I found that very helpful. I would be interested, maybe not now, not to put you on the spot, but how are the teachers doing the differentiated instruction? I mean, it's easy to say that teachers are doing that, but how is that actually happening? And not for tonight, but maybe a further discussion, to not put you on the spot, but I would like to hear more about that, because I think that's a really important goal for the whole system.
Absolutely.
To do true differentiated instruction. And I'd love to hear more about it at a later time. So Ms. Gorman, maybe you can arrange that. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, one more question. Just to follow up on your point, I think some parents don't understand what differentiated instruction looks like.
Right.
So even being able to ask your child, what way was this lesson taught, or whatever, I think might be informative to the whole community. So I would also love to hear more about that at some point. The other thing, I thought you had mentioned that you said you folks meet once a week. Is that?
Or once a month.
Is it once a month?
Our site council
Yes.
meets once a month.
Oh, once a month.
First
I thought you said once a
Wednesday
week, and I was
of
going to
every
say, whoa.
That's
fabulous.
Oh, we did meet today, so it seems like what's.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Nice job.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
At the table, and we'll ask Tracy Shuey and Jessica Galuli to join us. And we might go out of schedule, if that's right, under my report.
Okay with me.
I have an next one. So, do you want to hang these? Should we, Superintendent Grumley, you talked about us hanging some of these things. Would you like us to do that, or should
No,
we
I
just
have
hold
this
them up?
portable board right here for you. I had it ready.
I mean, we could also just tape them to the bookshelves. It's easy
Right
enough.
here, maybe my student helpers.
Oh, you have medical tape. She's got medical tape. This is from the doctors. Take what you can get. Sorry for the delay.
That's okay. It's going to be worth the wait, we know.
I sure hope so.
How appropriate is that for you?
Got it all ready. Do these two together?
So while the parents are presenting, if I might, talking about a person with an idea, Emily McElhaney, Glover parent, came forward with the idea of beginning a art docent program and did a tremendous amount of research, met with Jess Galuli and Rachel Shuey, and I think that you're going to be very excited about what their seed of an idea has grown to in our 4 elementary schools, in our primary grades. So I'll turn it over to you.
So,
And Emily, if you might do the introductions of Rachel.
Sure, I'm
Yes?
Emily McElhaney.
I'm Rachel Shuey.
And Jessica Luley. Superintendent Gormley mentioned that I came to her with this idea, but it's not a new idea. These docent programs are in existence all over the country. They've been around for a really long time, decades in fact. There are several very healthy docent programs, even in the South Shore. The Hingham school systems have a good program, Situate as well. So when we began to talk about it, it was not something new and novel, but it is a little different from other programs. Jess and I spent a long time researching other programs. We downloaded hundreds and hundreds of pages of curriculum from other programs and began to figure out what kind of program would suit the Milton Public School elementary program best.
We were specific about a few artists. We wanted to take 6 artists, narrowed them down to 6 artists, and we wanted to repeat them through kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade with the same artists, different lessons each year, but so that it's an enriching or building upon each artist as you go through 1st and 2nd grade. We also wanted to make sure we weren't sending the message that we weren't replacing the art program, that we saw this as a way of really enriching the art history awareness while also supporting core subject learning, but that it would never substitute the creative process found in the actual art class in the schools. So it was kind of the icing on a cake type of thing.
So we spent a long time going over these materials from other schools, and a lot of the patterns that we saw were sort of watered down high school lessons. And we really wanted to develop an elementary school program. And so we spent a lot of time finding age-appropriate content. That's some of why we picked the artists that we did. We have these 6 artists that just mentioned. We have Van Gogh, Matisse, Picasso, O'Keeffe, Clay, and Kandinsky. And we picked them because they are very approachable for elementary students. We also chose them because visually they're often familiar for parents. And so this is material that everyone can feel comfortable with and familiar with. They're also artists that developed long and varied careers, so the students can study them for 3 years and see very different types of work and still be learning more about the same artist. And we spent a long time finding books to support the curriculum. The way that these lessons are set up, they follow sort of a library story hour model is what we define it as. And so the lesson begins with reading a book, and then you take a look at a print and you talk about the way the book and the print are related and the things that they remember from the book that they can see in the print, and then you finish with a hands-on activity to reinforce some of the things that they've learned and bring things together. One of the important things that we wanted to do, of course, was to reinforce core learning. And so when we talked about interpreting the prints, we tried to use a literature circle model. Elementary school students in the Milton Public Schools and pretty much in schools all over the country are taught to analyze texts, written texts, on 3 levels. First, they do a text to self-analysis. So they take a look at a book and they figure out how it relates to their lives and the things that they think about and feel when they read it. And then they do a text to text analysis. They think about what they read in that book and they try to think about how it relates to other books. And then they do a text to world analysis. They think about the lessons that they learned and try to take on more abstract and bigger world ideas that might not have right or wrong answers, but still are very big questions worth asking. So when we lead these discussions of the artworks, the lesson plans take the students through reading the artwork in the same patterns that they would read a book. So we're reinforcing reading strategies, and we're also trying to help them understand that they can apply those strategies to other types of thinking and other disciplines. Let's see. We do the lessons in different ways in different grade levels because the different students are prepared for different types of teaching. You want to talk about the kindergarten?
So kindergarten, we talked in great depth about whether to keep them in the classroom or take half of them out. So it looks like it works best with all the kids in the classroom. They have an aide and a teacher and hopefully 2 parents running the lesson. And there's been really positive feedback in that model. And then in first grade, the parent volunteers take half the class into a separate area and the other half stays with the teacher. And this is a great benefit for the teacher. They have some small instructional time. Usually it's a reader's workshop or writing workshop. I've been doing it all year with my daughter's class, and the teacher has been very grateful, and it's been very helpful for them. And then the same is in second grade. And then you switch after about a half an hour with the teacher, and you take the other half. And so it's about an hour of the day, once a week or whenever you can volunteer.
And the books that you're seeing in the lesson plans that we wrote up, some of the books are read in their entirety and some of them are excerpted. Some of them get a little dry at points and try to move things along. And then you'll see in the back of some of the books there are also articles that we've written and added that expand a little bit more. Some of them have just not quite the content that we wanted to cover in the lesson, so we've written some original material to make sure that it touches on the content areas that we were trying to hit during the lesson plan.
We held 2 nighttime trainings that were open to the whole district. One was held at the Tucker School and the other at Collicott. We also trained a lot of volunteers that would come in and observe either my class or Emily's class, and seemed to have worked out.
Yeah,
nicely.
and right now we have so many parents trained that they're training other parents, so we're not directly involved in all of the training anymore, but people are constantly joining. We have some samples. These are all from the kindergarten grade level. I had to bring kindergarten because the grade 1 and grade 2 are in such heavy use right now that I couldn't even get them away from the bins. But there's the first, I actually don't know what order we have them up, but the first is a Picasso. And one of the goals of this was to take a look at the shapes in the face and talk a little bit about Cubism. Often when we're trying to do the art history content, we really just do 1 or 2 points. And so those are really the 2 points of that lesson. And so in a student response to that, after reading the book that you're looking at, the Picasso book, they made 5 shapes on a piece of paper and moved them around and experimented with them on the piece of paper and figured out where they might belong and worked on blending colors. And then in the middle, you'll see the Starry Night, which is familiar and well known to many of the students, and we read a book that actually was written by Vincent van Gogh. It's excerpts of letters that he wrote to his brother about his own paintings, and then read a little bit of original content that we created to bring the lesson together, and they work on a pastel drawing, and the last is a Georgia O'Keeffe. And you can see they're working on abstract drawings. There are also math concepts that are tied into several of the lessons. This one talks about horizontal and parallel lines. There are several other math concepts in other lessons. So you can see a few samples of the way the lessons proceed. You have the books that go along with these.
Emily, did a kindergartner do that picture?
Yeah.
Would you share about the boards that the area you've created in each school to share the artwork?
There are bulletin boards in the different schools, and so different grade levels and different parents can sign up, or when they have time, cycle through and hang up the different works that are going on. The board that we keep at Glover, we often try to post with a few questions so that the students have some things to think about, and some quotes from students from the class. So they have some of the possible answers to the questions. We can talk about some numbers of people involved now so you get a sense of the scope.
So we have about 150 volunteers at this point, and about 45 classes that have been taught or being taught. So it's been a really wonderful turnout. amazing turnout, actually. We've been very we've been like, really impressed at how committed the parents are at giving their time. Some parents go in every week. Some parents maybe once a year, once a month. We had a training at Collicott, and it was one of the snow nights.
The weather was so bad that school had already been canceled by the time the meeting was taking place.
So Emily and I were talking, and we said, is anyone going to show up? And we had over 40 parents.
We ran out of
that
photocopies in the
night.
first 10 minutes.
So it's been heartwarming.
Yeah. And Rachel is a parent volunteer and can talk a little bit about the experience of coming into the program and using the lessons.
Well, you've heard from the artists. Now you can hear from the non-artist parent. I honestly had never even heard of Clay when I got asked to help with this. So Emily had asked me and Jess had asked me to kind of share a little bit about how accessible it is for the volunteers. Em and Jess have put together an amazingly user-friendly, fabulous, nitty-gritty, everything you could ever need to say in the course of running the lesson curriculum. So as a parent, if you are still trying to find your comfort place with this, you can literally sit there with the curriculum and you can pretty much follow it word for word and touch on everything that they want you to touch on. As you get more comfortable, you don't really need to do that. But it's incredibly accessible. I ran the program in my daughter's Glover kindergarten class, and it was so well received by the students, so well received by the teacher. We brought in different volunteers each week. And I'm also the parent coordinator for all the volunteers at Tucker. I'm a Tucker parent as well. And all the feedback has very much been the same. It's so accessible. It doesn't matter if you have a comfort level with the artist, with the art, with anything. And it's just gone very, very well. And we're having no problem covering the classes, and it's being very well received.
I think we also have to thank Superintendent Gormley for constant support of this program. Pretty much every time I've called or emailed and said, we need this, we need that, whatever you need. We started thinking that we were just going to buy one set of books and prints, and then realized that every school needed their own. And so she's been really, really supportive of the program, which is why we can have all the classes and all of the parents that we have.
So you really were a person with an idea, and to Jess and Rachel and the 150 parents. And again, it's almost like an ad for the MFE. We were able to secure funding from the MFE, and then a parent made a very generous donation, high school children and middle school children, but anything that you want to do in the Milton Public Schools. And again, these materials are going to be used over and over. The books, as I said to Miss Bagley-Jones, when I saw your books, I said those are going to be my gifts for age-appropriate children. The books are unbelievable. And so to the three of you, you gave credit to the 150 parents, but you've really made this work. And to Miss Bagley-Jones and Miss Kelly's point about differentiation, you were very ingenious in that they don't go into a room and have the teacher leave. The teacher differentiates the instruction with half the class. So at grades 1 and 2, it's really been very opportune. The response from the teachers, you've really outthought everything. The response from the teachers has been positive, the students, the parent response. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate it. They have ideas for future growth. And I love how Jess said, they were very clear at the beginning that we're not taking the place of art. This is an enhancement, and the art teachers were very receptive too.
Ms. Bagley-Jones.
I have to say how much I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm not an artist either, so it's like, oh, boy, it's really hard. When my daughter was in grade 3 at Collicott, for some reason, the teacher asked for volunteers, and I said, I can't do math. But I went in and I did an art project. I must have worked for 40 hours to get the art project together and then to do it, and I had no idea what I was doing, but she was interested in art, so I wanted to do an art project for her in her classroom, and I'm really bad at math, so that didn't help. But I just remember the work that it took me and the hours that I put in, so I can only imagine what you've done to have 45 classes and organize 150 parents to do this and do it so smoothly and seamlessly. My hat's off to you. It's just a wonderful thing that you've done it, and also it bolsters the art learning that our kids are getting in a great way. So
Big juggle right now is the choreography the main thing I'm working on at Tucker right now, because we're up and running, is who's doing what day and who needs what supply. And okay, when you're done at 9:45, I need you to run to Miss O'Brien's class because she needs the oil crayons next. And then when you're done, I need you to run too. But you have, that's the big challenge right now.
At Cunningham tomorrow, we have 4 classes going on at the same time.
Yeah, that's us on Wednesday afternoons, and it's a total choreography of, no, you have to do this one, and then you can do that one, and you need to start at 1 because they're starting at 12:05, and
so that's how many parents want to be involved. So.
It's wonderful.
And parents have told me, I wanted to find an avenue. I can now find a way to go into my child's class that I'm of value. And if you look at those materials, you have brilliantly created it for anyone to, as Ms. Bagley-Jones says, who's not an artist, to go in.
I think it has an extra boost for parent investment too, because they do know that the time that they're not with their particular child, their child is in a small group with the homeroom teacher. And so the homeroom teachers are very invested, and the parents as well. It's useful time for everyone. And I should also mention the principals have also been very helpful in helping us organize space and time, and
they're very appreciative.
We've gotten as far as we have without them. So.
Mr. Cohen?
And I'm also a big advocate for the arts, as you know, Mrs. Gillooly. But I think there's a misconception out there that, and I'd be one of those people who didn't really understand art till this year. A lot of us think that you go into a classroom and you paint a picture and you stick it on the wall. Until one day, I was on a development site that I'm doing in South Boston. And I think I told you this story. And I had an architect, an engineer, I had a surveyor, interior designers, kitchen designers, and I asked them, what was your favorite subject in school? And they all said art. And so my question is, are you promoting more than just painting pictures on a wall? Are you promoting future careers to, or potential careers to budding artists instead of just having them paint pictures?
Right? You can only hope, I think. Go ahead.
I think, well, since it's a parent-run volunteer, that you hope that you're promoting it in that sense. But I think the lessons are so carefully, we can only speak from the docent part, but they're so carefully constructed, and there's so many different learning objectives that go into it, like the math skills and how math and art actually overlap and relate, and architecture. I mean, there's a whole lesson on George O'Keeffe's
radiator building drawings of New York and urban cityscapes and the history of skyscrapers in New York.
So I certainly think that the love of art has to come from a young age, like a kindergarten or a first grade or a second grader.
I also think that the value of biography in imagining yourself becoming anything can't be overstated. If you can learn about an artist's life, and that we purposefully chose some artists who were talented as children and clearly were destined to become artists, and then we chose a couple artists who actually had a hard time choosing whether they were going to be painters or not, and really came to it later in life. And so we were trying to find ways to show students that they might not feel like painting is what they want to do now, but it's something that could come alive for them at some point. So there are visual reasons that we chose the artists that we did, but there are also reasons within the context of their lives that we were trying to teach particular lessons through their biographies.
We're also hoping to maybe grow for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and one of our objectives is to get some living artists, an American, so that children can identify with careers and somebody who's actually alive and not a dead male European. So that's one of our goals.
So if anyone in the viewing audience knows of an artist that would like to work.
Even at Milton Academy, you have those Jim Deinhardts, which I don't know if he's still alive actually, but there's a wonderful resource right in our backyard of sculpture, and it's one of my favorite sculptures actually. So, and he's American.
I think it's a wonderful example of another way that parents can get involved and share their passion and their expertise. when you have an idea and you're willing to cultivate it and work with the superintendent and the school department, it's wonderful things can happen. Thank you and all your volunteers for your time. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Oh, yeah, we need those.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Back to our report. I would ask you tonight to vote the school calendar. I want to recognize Mrs. Kelly. We've gone over this school calendar 200 times. Mrs. Kelly found a correction last night. So in your packets, you'll see the version that I'm asking you to vote on tonight. It's revised 3/2/11. We'll post this once you approve it. We'll put it out in my email blast and all of the principals' letters and up on the web. Again, now that MCAS arrives, when MCAS began, we used to get the results in December, but now the results come in over the summer. We've found the 2 professional development days before school starts very effective to work with teachers. We work as a leadership group all through August, preparing the results, getting them organized for the leadership team and then the teachers, so the teachers hit the ground running with that feedback on the students who are in front of them the first day of school. I would like to bring the public's attention to Rosh Hashanah being as a day off. Rabbi Benjamin came to see me on behalf of the Temple Shalom leadership and asked when Yom Kippur is on a weekend, would we have one day of Rosh Hashanah off? I agreed, and I thought they were telling secrets. I thought that he was going to ask me, as many communities, and this community years ago had both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur off. So next year, Yom Kippur is on a weekend, so we're having Rosh Hashanah off. I'm recommending that you approve that. October will be our next professional development day. We've had discussion. This has been cleared and vetted and brainstormed with the PTO presidents and the leadership team. And the PTO presidents asked that the professional development day on behalf of our families be attached to a long weekend with Columbus Day. The leadership team, to a principal and a department head, wanted that time in October after the children have been in school to work on Professional Development Day. November are parent-teacher conferences. December, vacation. January, we go into February vacation. March will be an outstanding month next year. Not one holiday, one day off, or any snow days.
Right.
Full month of instruction, getting ready for MCAS. April, and we go into May, and the last day of school, pending no snow, will be June 14th. And then we traditionally add 5 days for snow days. So I would ask you to vote this calendar tonight. And as I say, I appreciate the edits from the school committee. It's been vetted with the PTO presidents and our leadership team.
Ms. Bowman, I just want to draw the attention to the fact that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is now a full day holiday, full day off for students as well this year. That's a change for next year.
And no conferences per the last contract in the spring.
Mrs. Kelly?
Just to comment on that, it isn't that we don't have conferences, it's that there's no particular day allotted for that, right? There's still a window of time that...
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to Mrs.
I think we need
Kelly's
to be clear
point,
about that.
you know what,
Yeah.
before I issue this, I think this is a great point. Before I issue this tomorrow, pending you approving it, I'll say what the changes are, and I'll explain the spring conference model.
I think that would be
On the
great.
back.
Yep, that'd be great. And then the other question I had is on, let me back up. I appreciate that the PTO presidents would like to have a 4-day holiday for families, but I can guarantee you, as someone who works, not everybody has that Friday off. And so are community schools have any program available for parents that?
Yes,
Okay,
all
just
day,
to make sure.
for the elementary schools. Good
Great.
point.
But not just that day, the other days as well.
Right.
Ms.
Question?
Bagley-Jones?
So, Ms. Gormley, when you say on the back of here about the conferences, I know as a parent, I would feel awkward about calling, well, I wouldn't, but I know many parents would feel awkward about calling a teacher if they didn't know sort of the parameters.
I'm going to put
So
those.
that would be really helpful.
And I'll encourage
appreciate
the
that.
leadership team in this year of change and work with the teachers.
Right.
It will be
Because-
one of my priorities next year.
One year, you had everybody make good news phone calls, and that was a wonderful thing, and maybe it can be something around that as well. And then just a question about, so June 14th, haven't we had snow days off?
This is for next year.
Oh, sorry. I just can't stop thinking about the snow days.
So,
My bad.
that's right. But, no, I led you, next
Yes,
year,
it's your
pending
fault.
no snow days.
That's right.
We'll get out on the 14th.
That's right.
And we
Thank
can
you.
do that when you hear so many communities running up now to the end of June. That's because they start after Labor Day.
Right.
So
What is
this
our
is the
last
virtue.
day now, this year?
The 21st, it's a half a day.
21st is the half day. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan.
I called today, and I made sure that it gets changed. It'll be changed tomorrow. It's not updated on the
Okay, so June
Okay.
21st.
website. It will be
this year.
updated tomorrow.
Right.
Thank you.
And so we're not going to school April vacation or any of the holidays.
Oh,
There's still vacation.
So I would ask you for a vote on that school calendar.
Any other comments about the calendar? I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2011-2012 school calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pavlicek,
Second.
second by Mr. Hubian. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
The next part of my report, Ms. Bagley-Jones, do you want to take a
Yes,
moment
I do.
and give a
I
wrap-up on a
do.
very successful
I do.
walkathon?
I do. I'm really happy to say the walk was an outstanding success, and it was such a success, I can't even give you the final amount because I just got handed more checks that copies of checks that I didn't know about. So if all the pledges had come in, we were at 22,000, but I can see some checks here that I don't have on my list. So it's going to be more than 22,000 that we made, which is unbelievable amount of money. The first year, if you remember, we made 30 when the school committee said, we're going to cut spring sports. Last year, we didn't say that, we made 8,000. This year, I think the difference or the recipe for success was we got 60 students together initially from the clubs, from the sports, and said, okay, guys, what do we have to do to make this more fun? And they came up with some great ideas, not so great ideas too, like no exams if you raise the most money, but most of their ideas were really fabulous. I think, John, you were at that meeting. Yep. And then the kids signed up if they wanted to help, and 24 students signed up to help. So they did things like they went to Pierce on the half-day when they were supposed to be off and talked to the 8th graders. They came here and they talked. They went to the businesses. They really did a lot of extra work, those 24 students. And then there were 33 administrators and teachers who showed up at the event. And the teachers, I want to admit, did lose at dodgeball, which meant that the team that won got a free night of homework because the teachers lost. So the teachers really need to practice for next year. But there was basketball competitions. There were just lots of things. And there were kids who sang and played the guitar and played the piano. So it was very inclusive of
marching
sports and
band,
clubs. Linda Lee was there. Mary was there. It was very nice to see.
I wasn't saying that. I was saying the marching band was there.
Oh, the marching band, the
step
dance team.
Yes, they were awesome.
I mean, and it was really nice. I could go on forever, but it was very inclusive. Fame and Fava both helped out. They stepped up right to the plate. 250 students just about got pledges and participated. So that's 250 students who got pledges, plus all the people who gave them the pledges. So that's, I mean, we have 1,000 students. Next year, as I've been told by the kids, because this year was so much fun, we're going to have even more students next year. There were a lot of parent volunteers that helped that day. They ran a bake sale. They helped with nursing stuff. They helped register kids. The community spirit, and Laura Kessler, who was my co-chair on this, her spirit was unbelievable. She's walking around with her cane from surgery she had. She was going a mile a minute. She was fabulous. I did want to acknowledge the businesses, but I can't because there's more that have come in. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in Ms. Gormley's next email blast. We'll send them all thank you notes, and we'll put signs at the front of the door and the back entrance on a poster board of the businesses that contributed, because they really need to be acknowledged. The one I do want to say tonight, just because there's a timeliness to it, is Cakes, the bakery in the other side, in this side of Milton. We're the charity cupcake until March 15th, so I just bought 2 dozen cupcakes myself, because we get a percentage of the charity cupcake of the month, which ends March 15th. So everybody should go buy cupcakes at Cakes. And then there were folks who gave us gift certificates. Plenty of businesses gave us money, and then we had gift certificates. We had Red Sox tickets. Didn't someone here win something?
Who never wins anything.
Yes. Did you win 88 Wharf?
Yes, I did.
And we had Abbey Park, and we had Belle Visage, and Milton House of Pizza. They all gave gift certificates that we were able to sell a raffle ticket to. And kids played games that they paid, because the kids said, oh, no, they'll pay $1 or $2 to play badminton, or they'll pay $2 to play this. So anyway, I could go on and on forever. But it was a wonderful success in that the community really came together, not just because of the financial success, but that the kids ran it, developed the ideas, and they were just fabulous. I am glad it's over. And the thank you notes will include these new people. So
And I want to thank, just like with the docents, every one of these programs needs strong leaders. Kristen Bagley-Jones, Dawn Jones, and Laura Kessler just really extended themselves to make this a success. And as much for the finances that we needed to supplement and make the clubs and activities and athletics run, it built unbelievable school spirit. Right, my high school reps? It built school spirit, and you know what, the time flew. And I appreciate the school committee members and all the community members who were there. And she did a great job.
it was wonderful. Thank you.
Moving along, per the committee's request, there's an enrollment update every meeting. We'll give you our enrollment sheet that we work off. I want to bring your attention to the homeless audit and the financial audit. Bringing your attention back in the viewing audience, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education performs audits in the school system every 6 to 7 years. This past fall, we had our audit in special education, civil rights, English language instruction, homeless, Title I, and we had a financial audit that wasn't part of that umbrella, but the state came in for a brief audit on some finances. We received the response to our McKinney-Vento program review report, and we'll put this up on the web tomorrow. If you would indulge me, Milton Public Schools is doing a good job of addressing, they write, the educational needs of homeless children and youth, and of implementing the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The district has an experienced homeless education liaison and the active support of the assistant superintendent. The homeless education policy, while brief, is supported by extensive procedures. The handbook is well organized with policies, procedures, school contact, and local and national resources. The only area of concern they highlighted is that the public notice of the educational rights of homeless children. While Milton is not a town with numerous service providers sharing liaison contacts information and the rights with the police, fire, and other town departments, as well as clinics and provide service areas, will help in identifying homeless children and youth. So as of yesterday, posters have been put up in all of the areas suggested by the department, giving all the contact information if in fact you and your family find yourself homeless, how we can facilitate and make sure that your children go to school. So this will be on the web tomorrow. We're very pleased with the results. And I also put in your packet today that we had, again, this was not a financial audit. It was 1 or 2 days that DESE sent in, they call it a fiscal review. I would bring your attention back, this will be posted tomorrow, their observations. Milton Public Schools has a practice of not having credit cards. While most districts find this a necessity, the Milton Public Schools have done well in eliminating this potentially risky process. Over the years, we've talked about the chart of accounts. The Milton Public Schools have set up their chart of accounts to reflect the DESE expenditure. This set allows the school district to meet reporting requirements with more efficiency and eliminates crosswalk. That's another positive. It was noted in our 2009 single audit, we've been talking about the student activities accounts. I have to recognize Matt Gillis and appreciate the work of Town Hall that we have set our student activities account in order. The Milton Public Schools has a number of best practices, they write, that are being performed, but they suggest that we put these best practices, so there's no confusion and misunderstanding in the future, into a written policy. and they were not engaged in any kind of audit for examination. They go on to write, it's solely intended for the use of DESE, but it's a public report. And so I too will put this report up on the web tomorrow. The good news is, today we received our first draft of our SPED audit, our ELE audit, and our civil rights audit. And I am pleased with the responses. Where we have some issues, or they want some more notification on certain areas, we have a few weeks to get back to them, and then I'll bring the report when they send me the final copy to your attention. We'll have a full school committee on that report and put it back up on the web. So those are all really good news stories. I consider those report cards on the district and take them very, very seriously. So those are good news stories. School happenings, if you'll indulge me for a minute. Daffodil Day to all those parents and teachers and guardians who contributed. Over $7,000 was raised in the Milton Public Schools for the American Cancer Society. Thank you. The Future Problem Solving, a program that's close to my heart in the 4th and 5th grade. It's really all children, students are involved, and then there's a program that children who excel in the area can compete at the state level. We've had teams. Mr. Lovely's son once went nationally and competed. Very exciting emails over last weekend that the Collycott, Tucker, and Cunningham teams have ranked for the state bowl. So they will be traveling on March 19th, a Saturday, to Marlborough, Massachusetts. Very, very exciting. Their names are listed in my email blast. After they come back, we'll bring all the children who are competing at that level to the school committee. This Saturday program that Ms. Nephew referred to begins for children in grades 3 through 7 this Saturday at the PS School. Any parent in the viewing audience, please call your school principal or me if you have not received the information or you want to become involved in that Saturday program. We had an event. We had an evening at the PS School on safety and safety issues involved around children of that age. And Police Chief Richard Wells addressed perhaps 75 parents that night. It was a very positive night. He also addressed our PTO presidents with me, and the response was so positive that the elementary parents asked, would he do a night on child safety? All sorts of issues around child safety for the elementary parents, excuse me. So next week, again, he's busy, not much notice, but we're getting the word out. March 9th in the PS Middle School auditorium, Milton Police Chief Richard Wells will meet with any elementary parent or guardian who wants to attend on a night of safety. This is Arts in Our Schools month. My email blast detailed, and I would ask you to follow up with the individual principals. We'll put it on the web around all the activities. I have to take a moment, though. This afternoon, I'm an honorary member, my button proves it, of the Tri-M Honor Society of Music at Milton High. And I think it's one of the most moving hour sessions that I have each year. The students at Milton High School who meet the requirements perform. They either sing or play their instrument. And with a very small audience of the recipients, last year's recipients, and their parents. I wish there were 1 million people watching these presentations. And then these students are inducted into the Tri-M Honor Society, and it's a very, very moving ceremony. And I'm privileged to be a part of it every year. And so, again, we'll recognize those students in all of our publications. A good news story that we've put out, but for anyone who doesn't get our email blasts, we have made an appointment of Janet Sheehan to the principalship of the Collycott Elementary School. I've brought tonight, and I can share with the public, and we'll put her cover resume up on the web. It might be a familiar name. Janet Sheehan was the vice principal and a teacher at the Collycott School. Ms. Sheehan graduated from Lesley University and Westfield State She's been principal for the last 10 years at the Joseph Osgood Elementary School in Cohasset. She was assistant principal at the Collycott. She is a very, very talented educator. I want to recognize the screening committee. You are well represented by Ms. Bagley-Jones. It was a very positive experience, and we all settled on a candidate, and we are very, very pleased. She's equally pleased. She's a principal of a K-2. I think she's looking forward to the challenge of a K-5 and bringing her experience to the town of Milton. I've included her resume, and she wanted to come tonight, but she had a commitment at her own school, so she wants to come to the committee, and I'd love for the viewing audience to meet Janet Sheehan. So we've made that appointment. That's a good news story. We're still in the midst of working with our screening committee and our special ed PAC group of parents on our administrator of pupil personnel. So I hope to be bringing you an update on that position at our next meeting. If you would indulge me, again, better than I could have, you had the MFE leadership here tonight. Please circle that date, April 2nd. If you want raffle tickets, any parent can go into any school office. These parent volunteers are working very, very hard. All of you who pay your excise tax, you received in the mail yesterday your excise tax bill, but accompanying it was a letter from our MPACE group and talking about the arts. These fundings, when you roll up your excise tax bill, our fourth graders would never be able to go to the Boston Youth Symphony without this funding. Again, the buses are expensive, the cost. Our middle schoolers are going to have a presentation in Egyptian art, and a vision of one of our prior superintendents, Dr. Mary Grass O'Neill, when we had this auditorium, was to integrate a Shakespearean play at each grade level, according to what the literature is at the grade level. So Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet are now being able to be funded for Milton High School students. Did either of you attend a presentation last year, a Shakespearean? Excellent, on cue, outstanding. And again, we're able to, to Ms. Bagley-Jones's point, all of the fundraising that's done, all of the students that are touched by this MPACE group, which is completely funded from the excise tax roll-up. So I want to just give a plug to that. Everybody's sitting at home writing their excise tax bills. And next week, I said to Mr. Huban at our next session, we promised January. He's indulged us to the next meeting. Mr. Phelan will be reporting out with his committee of parents, teachers, and administrators on school choice. And one I want to finally bring to the public's attention. The public has been very indulgent of the traffic issues around the Collycott, Cunningham, and the Glover School. We have had traffic issues, and the public has had traffic issues if you drive down those streets. Yes. I want to thank the Cunningham and Collycott staff, John Phelan, the Milton Police, especially Kevin Foley, Jerry Schultz, Karen Spalding, who worked over her vacation on this. Kevin Foley is amazed the way Milton Public School parents respond and read these emails and are vested in the safety of their children. And now we've solved the traffic issue and the safety issue at the Collycott Cunningham, and the system is working perfectly. John Phelan and I can attest to bus duty yesterday morning and afternoon, and Monday morning and afternoon. Everybody lamented we started in the rain and snow. I said, but what better way to find out that the system's going to work? And it's all around the safety of the children, and that system now has improved, and we're going to go to the Glover and work on that issue, again, for the safety of the children, but also for the community. And on athletic, in the spirit of time, I'll do the athletic update on the winter sports, but it's on my email blast, and we'll put it up on the web tomorrow morning. But tonight, does anyone know? Hockey.
Boys hockey.
0-0 as we speak. Our boys are at the tournament level, first game. That's a good news story. And that's the tournament that we're in. Any questions, comments?
I just want to say, Ms. Gormley, that you gave credit to everyone else for that traffic situation being fixed, and I know that you truly took a leadership role in that. Directing traffic day after day, and there checking it out and making sure that safety was.
Along with a lot of staff, principals, Milton Police, John Phelan, and Kevin Foley we are very fortunate with the Milton Police.
Team effort.
They really extend themselves to the Milton Public Schools. Thank you for indulging me on all of this.
Mrs. Kelly?
I just wanted to follow up on two things. One, the Saturday program. So is there one Saturday program for grades 3 through 7, or are there some separate Saturday programs at the elementaries?
Right on cue.
I was a
Here
little
you go,
confused.
Mr. Phelan. Mr. Phelan has all the facts on the MFE funded. This is also at a minimal cost, this program, but we're trying to make it available. So Mr. Phelan will give a good outline of it, Ms. Kelly.
We're very happy to have the second annual Milton Public Saturday program. It has been funded by the Milton Foundation for Education through monies raised last year. It is a 6-week program for students in grades 3 through 7, and there are enrichment courses offered. There are going to be 3 periods for the day. It starts at 8:30 for students to have breakfast and transition into the day, and then from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and 11 and 12, students can take courses like March Madness and Literature. There's a cooking class, there's reading circles, there's a math class for enrichment purposes, and there's also going to be support classes for students who could use support in math and English in those grades as well that have been identified by building principals. We are very excited that the enrollment is around 100. And we have our first Saturday on this coming Saturday at the Pierce Middle School. Erin Power, our teacher at the Cunningham School, is the director, and if anybody would like more information, I think we pretty much saturated through the phone and email venues of communication, but they can communicate with Erin to enroll. We will take enrollments up and through after the first week.
And it's, to Mrs. Kelly's point, this is a wonderful opportunity getting ready on a 6th day of school for MCAS, both recreational periods and academic periods for students.
The second program we have is Math is a Slam Dunk. This is the second year we've had Math is a Slam Dunk. Last year we piloted the program at the Tucker School. This year it is at the Tucker, the Cunningham, and at the Pierce. We have a parent in our community who owns and operates Pinnacle Learning. His name is Steve Shapiro. He's an incredible asset to the community of Milton. He volunteers his time, his staff, and the materials to support students for a 14-week program that started in January that runs on Saturdays. That is for students who are in need of support in math. And they do math for an hour, they play ball for an hour, they do math for an hour, they play ball for an hour. He has high school students working as in community service roles to work with the students in the gym. He has staff from Milton Public Schools and his organization at Pinnacle Learning to support the students in some very direct and targeted instruction. This is what Steve does for a living, and he does it very well, so we feel having him involved with a good amount of our students, quite frankly, on Saturday mornings over a 14-week period of time will do a lot of good for our students, and it's built a lot of goodwill connecting high school kids to our elementary and middle school students. And again, no cost to the taxpayer, no cost to the student.
We really have to recognize Steve Shapiro.
Absolutely.
The principals all together at the leadership team yesterday said they've all gone on Saturdays. They said, Mary, those students are so engaged. Those teachers, he gives the teachers training. This is a model that is unbelievable, and it is unbelievable for our students. And we really want to recognize Mr. Shapiro.
So if I could say something, only because I was totally unclear until you mentioned it a second ago, John. So this is 100% free for kids?
Correct.
The 6-week enrichment program?
No, there's 2 separate programs. The Saturday, the Milton Public Saturday program.
Because there's no mention of money there, so it's being funded by the MFE, but so where's the cost?
The money supplements the program. We enroll students for enrichment for a fee. We enroll the students who need support classes for free, for no cost. In the program, and the monies raised by the foundation helps
I'm not
support.
sure if I heard you right. For a fee
Okay.
and for free, what's?
I'll use different vocabulary. $150 to attend the program if you would like to take 3 enrichment courses. So that's 3.5 hours a Saturday for 6 Saturdays. If you are someone that we identify that could use some support in math and/or English, you would attend the 6 weeks with no charge. If you wanted to add an enrichment course as one of your courses during the day, we would ask for a nominal fee for that 3rd class that you would take. So you'd take 1 period of English, 1 period of math, free of charge. And if you decided to take an elective like an art class or literature circle class, you would pay for that one.
So then what do the funds that the MFE are putting forward, what does that cover?
There's,
A lot more than 100.
it would be a lot more than 150 for every person. The program does not run at a profit. It runs at a slight deficit. So that deficit, we have put money in a revolving account to support that.
So it goes to pay for the teachers or the instructors?
The teachers, the materials, the fees for the custodians to open the building in the heat and so forth.
We would not be able to run that program at $150 a child on Saturday mornings with all the costs, without the MFE funds.
Right. Well, that's good, because there was no mention of fees until right now. So I thought it was free, and I'm sure a lot of other people thought it was free. So that's good.
And so we want to make it clear, because you've asked a great question. Then we run another program, we sponsor another program, Steve Shapiro, with the Slam Dunk. That is a free program.
Okay.
So there are 2 different programs running. So it is, to our point, opening up these schools and engaging a large number of elementary school children on Saturday mornings in the Milton Public Schools.
Mrs. Kelly?
And then one other question. We had a person at Citizen Speak who spoke to the kindergarten, grade 1, yeah. So if I could we just get an update in terms of whether numbers have come back in with their choices and sort of what the change has been.
I would have had to bring everybody back here tonight if you hadn't reminded me about that. This is what we're living, this 1st and 2nd grade registration. We're living at kindergarten and 1st grade registration. As we speak, yesterday, for the last 2 days and tomorrow, kindergarten parents are coming for kindergarten registration, not with their child. They're coming with their residency packet. They're sitting down with the school secretaries, the school nurses, representatives from the school. So if you have a child who's coming to kindergarten next year, and you're watching tonight, and you have not registered, you did not come to the informational meeting, and you haven't made contact with us, I would ask you to call the superintendent's office tomorrow morning, 617-696-4808, 4809, 4811, or 4812, and we'll be able to facilitate an appointment with you tomorrow. We will have a backup day, but again, we live in an unbelievable community. Every parent who was signed up today came. And so we've perfected this process, that we get all of the families in, we go through all of the residency material, and then we go through the children being screened later in the May into June. So that's the kindergarten process. If you're watching or you're reading about this meeting, we want you to make contact with us so we fully integrate your family and get all of the screening done this spring. Now, 1st grade. In the Milton Public Schools, where we offer 2 programs, over the years, as I wrote in one of my letters, there have been change in the program. It's grown from 48 children the first year over 20 years ago to 58% of our current 1st graders. And the percentages differ all the time. We had a committee last year who made recommendations, and I brought to this committee and asked if I told you I was going to make a change in the process of how parents sign up. If, in fact, there has to be a lottery, and now last year there had to be a lottery for an over-enrollment in French immersion program. And so, just a reminder, it comes down to the recommendation of the group last year and what we did last year. The first group that enter are children who have siblings in the school. The next group that enter, if there are seats still available, are children who went to kindergarten and are the oldest in the family, or the only child, and they're in kindergarten. And then the third tier would be children who haven't come into the Milton Public Schools yet, who just moved into town, or might be in private kindergartens. I put out a letter that I was going to group the first two tiers. There was, as the parents said, a tremendous feedback from parents. We have tremendous feedback from parents on a lot of issues. And I can say why it had to be changed, why I recommended going back to what the committee did last year, because a family goes through this process once. And when I was getting feedback from parents after the fact, they said, my family already went through the lottery. And so why should my second, third, fourth, or fifth child? And so I sent a letter out the Friday before vacation to all of the parents involved, and went back to, I felt that I gave them enough notice. I realized changing the rules during the process is difficult, but the sign-up deadline is today. And so we have reached out as many ways as we possibly can to let every family know that the deadline's today. To Mrs. Kelly's point, we're getting, I started getting numbers in today. All the principals are coming tomorrow with their numbers, but for you to understand, we'll get those numbers, and then we have to check the residency of everyone. We have to check the school district of everyone, and then reports are at two of the schools. I don't want to say which two, and it might not be tomorrow morning if people leave the slips off tonight. We might not need lotteries. And so my goal is to get all that work, to double and triple check it, and to communicate with the school committee. And then, to Mrs. Kelly's point, I think it's very important, we will email out to every parent, as we did last year. We'll tell them the status of the exact numbers we shared with the public last year, and what the next steps are going to be. So as I said to one parent today, my goal is for everyone to feel at ease and to look positively towards their experience in Milton Public Schools. And I understand that this presents aggravation and stress for parents and guardians. My goal is that every family is in their neighborhood school in the program that they want. And that's what we're going to work towards and to facilitate. So this will, to Ms. Kelly's point, be the topic of our upcoming school committee meetings, and I'll pass by you every communication that I'm going to send out before I send it out to all of the parents and guardians. Did I leave off anything? It's very involved.
Yes, you did.
And it is?
Okay. What you left off is your willingness to be open to hearing about some of the points that parents made about parents having to go through the lottery. I don't know if there's a lot of superintendents out there that would be as open as you are to hearing, like, okay, maybe we need to do it this way a little bit differently because of this reason, which has to do with family involvement. It's very hard for her to take a compliment, isn't it? Yes. So anyway, I thought you did an outstanding job with handling the crisis around this, so thank you.
And I know that there are families that aren't pleased, and I've called them, and I'll speak to any family, parent or guardian, and our goal is to have them in the school they want, or to meet their desires. But we're working around constraints and budgets, and as I said, I'm an advocate for both programs, and we'll get over this hump, and everybody will be assigned to a school. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Ms. Gormley. My chairman's report will be very brief tonight. I just want to note to the school committee members that the Pierce Site Council presentation has been moved to the March 30th meeting. And I also want to tell the viewing public that our next meeting, which is March 16th, a Wednesday night, 2 weeks from tonight.
February 16th. March 16th.
You're messing me up with dates tonight. It's March 16th. Will be held in the auditorium, the high school auditorium, and it's an opportunity for community members and parents of students in the schools to come and share their ideas and suggestions and wishes about our budget process, or about the budget as it's reflected. So it's an opportunity for us to hear from you. It's not something where we can respond to questions that are asked, but it's a very open process where people are invited to come. So if you're not tuning in from home, we welcome you to come to the high school on March 16th at 7 p.m. And I'm sorry, Ms.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on the calendar. We had briefly touched at the Finance Subcommittee the potential that perhaps a lot of people wouldn't be coming to the budget hearing. Not that we want everyone who has something to contribute to please come, but we were wondering if we wanted to add some content to that meeting, just to make it.
I hadn't heard that yet, Mrs. Kelly, so
I'm sorry.
that's, no, that's fine.
We were just brainstorming. It may be that we just want to have the budget hearing and then go home. That's fine. But it does look like March 30th
It's
is
a
a
very
little
full agenda.
So if we perhaps wanted to entertain moving some of those things forward,
Sure,
we
I will
could make a meeting of it. But
I can contact some of those people and maybe food service or facilities and technology. We can look to make that recommendation.
I'm sorry, I forgot to bring that
That's
to your
okay.
attention.
But is that something that the committee is okay with? Or I guess that's what I wanted to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know one I'd like to see moved up.
What would you like to see moved up, Mr. Huebman?
School choice.
That's coming on.
And I think after Mrs. Kelly's report tonight on finance, we have made these presentations on the budget, and after the warrant committee report, I think that that's a great idea, because I think many of the parents and guardians' concerns are on their way to possibly being answered.
Prayers being answered, yes. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Kelly, for that suggestion. And we'll move right into unless anyone has a further comment about the calendar, we'll move into Finance Subcommittee's report on the good news on the fiscal year 12 budget.
It's rare that we get to talk about good news when it comes to budgets, but definitely this is a good news story. The warrant committee held their marathon Saturday meeting. I can't even remember what the date was, but was it last Saturday?
2 weeks.
Saturday, 2 weeks ago. Okay. And I actually wanted to refer to either members or Ms. Gormley, who stayed the entire meeting. I was only there for a portion of it. But I think it would benefit the community to sort of hear what happens at these meetings, and then we can get to the good news about the Milton Public Schools budget.
Sure. Mr. Pavlicek, why don't you share?
The warrant committee all-day meeting has become somewhat of a tradition in this town of trying to take one large chunk of time and try to craft the budget that will appear in the town's warrant, which is, generally speaking, 95% of what actually will appear at town meeting. There are always some changes between now and then. And this year was a little more complicated by the fiscal situation and therefore the warrant committee's desire to push it a little earlier in the year than it usually is. It's not usually a February meeting, but it's usually a March meeting. So that makes it a little more difficult. The first part of the meeting, of course, is they sit down and as anyone does trying to put together a budget, is to try to decide first what the revenue picture looks like. And of course, that's very difficult, since for the state aid, all we have right at the moment is the governor's proposed budget. We don't have anything from the House or the Senate yet. So they took a very conservative position, figuring that the governor's budget was probably an overestimate of what the town is going to get for state aid, and made a variety of estimations so that at least they could agree on a revenue figure for the town. And that's probably the most volatile number in this whole piece, is because until we see what comes out of the House and the Senate, it'll be difficult to tell where we are. Although I think they did a good job of taking a conservative tack at this point. And so, if anything, at this point, we're hoping that the news will be better rather than worse as the revenue numbers clear up as we go forward. So that's the first part of the morning. And after that, it becomes an issue of looking at, therefore, what do you do on the expenditure side? And the revenue picture that they agreed on, combined with using some of the money that was placed in the stabilization fund last year for this year's budget, put them in a position of being able to more than level dollar fund the town's budgets. So it became an issue of how to divvy up the money, and under, what were the priorities, what were the various departments asking for, what were extenuating circumstances for various different departments. If you have labor contracts that aren't settled versus you have labor contracts that are settled, as ours is, how do we treat that differently, and so forth. And basically, the warrant committee went through some of the larger pictures first, what happens with collective bargaining and so forth, and then just sort of pushed through all of the different budgets to see what were the issues, what were the priorities for funding. And the long and the short of it is that their vote at the end of the day on that Saturday was that we would be giving, there would be recommended at the town meeting that we would receive $637,000 above level funding. Considering we were looking at the level funding scenario and having to cut $1.5 million from our budget, from our level serviced budget, we had done that by making, roughly half of that in non-personnel related cuts, and then the other half of it in more or less personnel related cuts, although some small numbers of them weren't actually, but we really had that $750,000 of personnel related cuts. This allowed us to put essentially back $630,000 of them. So we are not looking nearly at as dire a scenario on the personnel front as we were worried we might have been. And the other town departments are in a similar situation. They receive money above their level funding as well. There is some money in the case of other town departments where there aren't collective bargaining contracts in place. There is some money to fund what will certainly be some sort of potential settlement of those agreements, so they won't have to eat those costs. There is money going into the stabilization fund. There is money going into the capital stabilization fund. And as usual, there are money like places like the reserve fund for unexpected, unforeseen, unbudgeted expenditures, and there is money in addition to that for this year's overage in snow, because as we all know, this year's snow budget's knocked everyone crazy. So a lot of one-time money that was identified that might have flown into the revenue stream for next year is going to have to be used just to finish off the snow and ice budget for this year. So overall, I think it was a good day. It was we came out of it with more than I expected we would come out of it with, which was a surprise for me. I was quite happy with that because I didn't think they would have really as much to move around as they turned out appearing to have. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the town meeting last year put money in the stabilization fund, knowing that this was going to be a bad year, and took some of the money they had and said we're going to spread this over 2 years, much the same way as we did with all the stimulus funds. Instead of spending them all at once, so we got to stretch these out and even out this bump over a couple of years. I think that has paid dividends. I think as a result, next year is looking, not as bad as it really could have been, and had we not taken measures, would have been. So again, it's early. I mean, this is basically is determining what's going into the warrant. There'll be some modifications of it over the next couple weeks as things happen. Some of the revenue projections will come out differently for certain. And almost certainly at town meeting there will be the usual amendments to say that, we have this instead, so we're going to do this, or, we're going to amend this budget or that budget and to reflect additional funds or changes in, when we get a more solid figure on health insurance costs and things like that. Things move around at that last minute. So there will be some changes. This isn't final, but I think it's a good place. It's a good place to be on the 1st of March, of 2011, anyway. So it's not a bad place to be. So the warrant committee is now in the process of taking 2-3 weeks, crossing some T's, dotting some I's, and writing up some recommendations for the warrant to go to town meeting.
Thank you very much. So two things I guess I wanted to add on top of that. Number one is just to emphasize that in order to increase the pie that will then get divvied up at us having 637,000, the town meeting will have to vote to take out of the stabilization fund some amount of money, whether it's $800,000 or a little bit less than that. So for those town meeting members out there, I think that's an important thing to be aware of. And as a result of being given this extra funding, the administration has put together a prioritized list of what would be reinstated. Of the $721,000 in personnel costs, they've crafted a list that basically restores all of the teaching positions with the exception of the 0.5 FTE to half-day kindergarten, which was being looked at as a reorganization and not a loss of services to the students anyways. And the other one that still remains unfunded is the 1.0 position in the business office, which the administration believes that they can accomplish again by reorganization and streamlining some of the workflow. So I didn't know whether the administration wanted to talk at all about the particulars.
Well, we met as a leadership team, and then we presented to Finance Subcommittee, and Leroy Walker, the chairperson of the Subcommittee for Schools on the Warrant Committee, worked with the Finance Subcommittee last fall and wanted us to create our budget and go out early and often. We went to every PTO. We presented to any group that wanted to discuss our budget. I presented to the heads of site councils. I presented to PTO presidents, and we heard back from parents and guardians and community members. And the feedback, the top priority if we were going to get funds above level funding and in our restoration was the English and French reading teachers. Tremendous feedback. The Warrant Committee also understood that's proactive in grades 1 and 2, the reading intervention, to avoid what possibly could be special education cuts. Next restoration, the PS Middle School math teacher. The next restoration, the Milton High School science teacher. A lot of feedback on this fourth restoration that will happen. The reorganization at the Collycott Cunningham will restore the nurse, so there'll be 2 nurses at that site. Next, the PS Middle School teacher to be announced. That was going to have something to do with the teaming. The next restoration, the Milton High School Spanish teacher. Again, these parents, even at the elementary school, are very involved in these restorations, and they understand the value of every teacher in the Milton Public School. They were very interested in the high school restorations. The next would be a .2 PS Middle School elective and a .2 Milton High School elective. As I said to an audience today, that could be the elective and elimination that your child wanted, or it could be an over-enrollment. Again, the Warrant Committee brought up some interesting information on this occupational therapist, speech and physical therapy. We explained this to the public in the preschool reorganization as a result of our SPED audit. We're going to still look at this, but as the Warrant Committee understood and the public understands that this is changes, this organization, the number of students enrolled, the demands of the IEPs, those positions are going to be restored. We cut $200,000 out of text materials and supplies out of a $900,000 budget, and that was really going to impact the elementary and middle school because the high school has the Hillside funds. So we are going to put $50,000 back into that. We'll still take a $150,000 cut on that non-personnel side of the ledger. Again, the preschool reorganization, the occupational therapy, the school year sub. We've talked to the public about, again, this year we have over 26 maternity leaves in the Milton Public Schools, and again, we have hired people, staff, teachers that are highly qualified, certified, and we're working hard not to skip a beat for these students in these classrooms. And so that was going to be a difficult reduction. We're going to restore that. And that would be all of the positions restored. To Ms. Kelly's point, again, that will be the $307,000. Next on the list, if more monies were targeted to the Milton Public Schools, would be the business office. Again, the half-time kindergarten teacher, Mr. Phelan, just told me, Ms. Kelly, and members, as of today, we only have 2 people signing up for half-day K in our registration process. And then we've also, again, Mr. Gillis was out, so we worked on this yesterday and today. We've left off that Cunningham Collycott grade 5 teacher, but that's on, if more funds were secured, that would be on the second level. But definitely being restored with the 637. We'll put it on the web tomorrow. And we'll put it out to all the principals. All those positions I detailed will be restored. Those are all actual positions. People had been notified that they were on that cut reduction list, and those positions will be back. The feedback from the community, and the warrant committee, the finance subcommittee, and the school committee, it worked. To Leroy Walker's point, we started early. We spent a tremendous amount of time with finance subcommittee and the leadership team on this. And I have to tell you, I wish you all had been there the other day with the leadership team. It was Dr. John Drotta, who's been through this for years. John Phelan, Dr. Drotta's reply